Police say they still don't know a motive, but in addition to being an Army veteran and linked to America's neo-Nazi white power world.
The history of racial crimes in the world reminds us of the dark times we once lived in, where people were treated unfairly and with violence because of their race. It is a sad reality that the hatred still runs through the community to this day and has not perished yet. Here is a list of white supremacists who were brought to justice. Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson. In 1998, there was a terrible event involving Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson, who were both in their early 20s. They approached a young man named Matthew Shepard outside a place called the Fireside Lounge in Laramie. They offered to take him home, but instead they took him to a remote area far from town. There, they did something very cruel. They robbed and hurt Matthew very badly. They tied him to a fence with barbed wire and left him there in the freezing cold. It was a terrible thing to do. The girlfriends of the attacker said they weren't drunk or on drugs when they did this terrible thing. McKinney and Henderson admitted that they planned to rob Matthew's home after hurting him and left him tied to the fence. After leaving Matthew tied up, they went back to town. McKinney got into a fight with two other men and the police arrested Henderson. They found a weapon, Matthew's shoes, and credit card in McKinney's truck. Despite the efforts of doctors and people holding candlelight vigils for him all over the world, Matthew Shepard couldn't survive the injuries from the attack. He passed away on October 12, just 6 days after it happened. Sean Berry, Lawrence Brewer, and John King. In 1998, in Jasper, Texas, a man named James Byrd Jr., who is African American, accepted a ride from 3 white men, Sean Berry, Lawrence Brewer, and John King. Instead of taking him home, they took him to a remote area outside town and hurt him very badly. They tied him to the back of a pickup truck and dragged him for 3 miles before leaving him near a black church. Sadly, James Byrd Jr. couldn't survive the injuries he suffered. The police found some evidence that linked the men to the crime. Berry's name was written on a wrench and King's prison name, Possum, was inscribed on the lighter. Brewer and King were known to be part of a white supremacist group, and their tattoos show their racist beliefs. Because of this hate and racism, the state law considered it a hate crime. All 3 men were put on trial and found guilty for what they did to James Byrd Jr. Brewer and King received the death penalty, making them the first white men in modern Texas to get this punishment for killing a black person. Texas and later Congress took action against hate crimes by passing laws to prevent such terrible acts from happening again. Lawrence Brewer was executed in 2011 and John King was executed in 2019, both by lethal injection. Sean Berry got a life sentence in prison and might be eligible for parole in 2038. Amber Rocco. On Christmas Eve in McMinnville, Amber was caught on camera using offensive racial language against a black couple during a parking dispute with the Robertson family in a parking lot. The video, uploaded on Facebook by one of the victims, showed Rocco holding a knife and behaving aggressively, which made the couple feel threatened. According to the victim, Rocco not only used racial slurs but also spat on and slapped her boyfriend. When he tried to warn her about the knife, she acted unpredictably. The police arrested Rocco shortly afterward, but she was released on bail after meeting certain requirements. Later, Rocco expressed regret for using the offensive language, but she still faced serious charges, including first-degree intimidation, unlawful weapon use, menacing, and harassment. She pleaded guilty to these charges and received a 30-day prison sentence and 3 years of probation. However, despite facing consequences for her actions, Rocco was arrested again for another incident with racial motives. This time, she allegedly used mace on her neighbor Barbara Halderman Kinney while hurling racial slurs at her. The incident occurred when Rocco was shoveling snow outside her home. Rocco escalated the situation by holding the pepper spray like a weapon. Halderman Kinney, the victim, recalled that Rocco had the mace prepared in her hand when she got out of the truck, indicating that the act was planned. The whole incident was recorded on surveillance cameras at Halderman Kinney's home. Donna Castle. In Detroit, Michigan, there was a court case involving Amanda Castle, who caused a drunk driving incident that tragically resulted in the death of Jerome Zicker, a father of 5. During the court proceedings, Amanda's mother, Donna, behaved very disrespectful. She started laughing and mocking, which upset the judge. She got very angry and called her a clown, then ordered her to leave the courtroom. Even when Mr. Zicker's sister emotionally spoke during the trial, Donna continued to behave inappropriately. Because of her disruptive and disrespectful actions, Donna was charged with contempt of court and received a 93-day jail sentence. However, after spending a day in jail, she realized her mistake and sincerely asked the judge for forgiveness. Surprisingly, the judge decided to show mercy and dropped the remaining 92 days of her sentence. Harry Rogers. In 2021, the president of Virginia KKK, Harry Rogers, committed a horrific act during a protest against the killing of George Floyd. He drove his truck through a crowd of protesters, causing injuries to many people. Thankfully, there were no fatalities. Rogers pleaded guilty to 3 counts of assault, 1 count of destruction of property, and 1 count of hit and run. Later evidence emerged of his involvement in Klan member meetings, suggesting that his actions were intentional and not accidental. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for his actions. However, some people believe that the sentence was not sufficient, considering that the consequences could have been much worse if he had driven at a higher speed. Many think that justice should be stricter in cases like this. That concludes today's video. Thanks for watching.